Good afternoon and welcome to our Penn State Football Weekly Press Conference. Just a reminder, turn your phones to vibrate off or mute. And also a reminder that we've added Sean Clifford to our weekly Zoom calls at 1:40 today, 1:40. Thanks for joining us, and we'll send it over to Coach for an opening statement.
Yeah, so like always, appreciate you guys coming out and covering Penn State football. I don't want to take that for granted. Quick summary of the Ohio game. The turnover battle was even. Offensively, we're doing a pretty good job of securing the football. We have to continue to do that. Penalties was essentially even when you talk about yards. I think we've done a pretty good job of that overall, but I still think we can be better there. Drive start has been a positive so far this year, and that's without a whole lot of turnovers. So Barney Amore's had a big part in that. Sack battle is an area, obviously, we got to get better. We did lose that battle. And then the explosive play battle, we did win that both offensively and defensively as well as overall. So, those things are real positive. When you talk about players of the game, on offense, Nicholas Singleton. On defense, Chop Robinson. On special teams, Devin Ford. And then we talk about our D squad, developmental squad players of the week who have a huge impact on getting us prepared to play while they're also being evaluated. On offense was Grayson Klein and Robert Rossi. On defense was Jake Wilson and Steven Ripka. And then on special teams was Tyler Holsworth. Obviously, the Big Ten Freshman of the Week was Nick Singleton, so that was great to see there. Few other things, positives. Obviously, we won the game. Again, I don't want to take that for granted either. We need to celebrate and enjoy winning. I think I've said this to you guys before. I don't want to become one of those coaches that you don't appreciate the wins. I want to make sure we're doing that as a program, because a lot of programs we're not able to do that Saturday and not able to enjoy Sunday the way we did. We played a lot of guys, 34 on offense, 36 on defense, for a total of 70 players in the game. Obviously, opportunities for growth on offense, third down, and on defense, just being more disruptive when we talk about tackles for lost sacks and turnovers. On special teams, punting, the times that we've punted, that's been a real positive for us. And then kickoff return, we need to be better, and PAT, field goal protection and production overall. So that's Ohio. Getting into Auburn just briefly. Obviously got a ton of respect for that program as well as that conference. Obviously, I got some familiarity. Been a head coach in that conference for 3 years. I've known Brian Harsin, for a long time, more from a distance, respecting his career, what he did at Auburn as well as other places. You talk about Auburn, still early in the season. I think it makes sense still to talk about returning starters from last year. They had 7 on offense, 7 on defense, and returned all of their specialists, all 4 specialists. So I have an experienced team coming back. Their offensive coordinator, Eric Kiesel, I've known for a long time. Brian is back, kind of in a position where most of his relationships and history with his coaching staff, for the most part now, his most trusted assistants are all guys that he's got history with. And Eric Kiesel running the offense for him. Guys that we've been impressed with is obviously Tank Bigsby, but you could even mention their backs in general. Their wide receiver, number 6, Javarius Johnson, guy that can really run, a 10-300 meter guy. And then obviously the change of pace quarterback, Robbie Ashford, who we recruited out of high school, who obviously is an explosive athlete. Defensively, Jeff Schmedding, again, back to a guy that was Coach Harsin's defensive coordinator when they were at Boise, so spent a lot of time going back and studying their tape and what they did defensively at Boise, as well as what they've done in the first 2 games. And then guys we've been impressed with, their defensive tackle, number 25, Colby Wooden, their DN, number 29, Derek Hall, their will linebacker, number 13, Cam Riley, and then their Sam/strong safety, Donovan Kaufman, number 1. Guys that stand out. Their front, obviously, defensively, is I think the thing that really stands out to us. And then on special teams, Rock Bellantoni, his first year taking over as a special teams coordinator, so most of our stuff is based on what they've done this year. Our studies on their special teams. Their kick returner, number 27, who's also the backup tailback, is from Philadelphia, Mississippi, just to be clear, not Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Their punt returner, number 6, Javarius Johnson, who we've already talked about. And then their punter, number 91, Oscar Chapman, is an Australian punter who does a nice job for them. So it's going to be a challenge. Obviously, this is their orange out. We've kind of listened to all their press conferences and watched all those types of things. Talked to a lot of people that have played there and been a part of that environment. I've been there before as well, and played there before. So getting our players prepared for what that's going to look like and what that's going to be. So open up the questions.
First question will go to Frank Bodani, and then we'll go to Donnie Collins.
Hey, good afternoon, Coach.
Hey, Frank, could you guys turn that up, please?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Drew Allar, can you talk to me just a little bit about the progress he's made since spring, maybe even since the beginning of camp? How drastic has it been? What does that say about him going forward?
Yeah, it's spring ball is invaluable for these guys that are able to come early. Obviously, if it makes sense for them, both from an academic perspective as well as just from a maturity standpoint. So having him here early, as well as our other quarterbacks, to learn the system, to study the system, to get comfortable, to get familiar, so they have a chance to truly compete. But obviously, we all knew that he had the physical traits and skills to be successful. But I think he's done a really good job of how to prepare, how to study the game, and I think Sean's had a big impact on that as well. Obviously, Coach Yursich, but he's done a nice job, and I think he's already at a point where the game is slowed down to him a little bit, where he's able to anticipate what's going to happen from a coverage perspective or from a pressure perspective. And he's doing some nice things that we've been able to build on, and we're going to need to continue to build on. I thought we did a good job of getting all 4 of those guys reps in the spring and then early in camp. And now, obviously, once we made the decision to move him to the number 2 spot, his rep count has obviously increased, which is important and valuable. And then, obviously, him being able to get reps in the first 2 games for different reasons, but has been valuable as well. So still got a lot of areas, a lot of room for growth, which is exciting. But obviously, he's doing some really good things.
Donnie Collins, Scranton Times-Tribune, then Rich Scarcella.
How are you, James?
Hey, Donnie.
Hey, how do you prepare for a tough environment? Is that easier thought of than actually accomplished? And how do you compare what you see at Jordan-Hare to what you see at the Big Ten or anywhere else in the SEC, since you've done it a lot?
Yeah, I think it's going to be similar to some of the better environments in the country. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, they take a ton of pride in their program and their university and their community, and obviously football is really important there, and in that region of the country. So we know it's going to be challenging and got a ton of respect for it, but we didn't wait until this week to get started with it. We did it during training camp, but we really did it last week. The guys were looking at me like I was crazy, the staff and the players, like, we went all silent count all last week in practice with, as everybody knows, with the music as loud as possible. And everybody's like, well, we're at home this week. Well, obviously, we were starting our preparation a week ahead for that without telling anybody that's what we were doing. But we'll show them some pictures of what the locker room will look like, what the stadium will look like. We'll show some videos. Obviously the War Eagle before the game. the band, the scoreboard side of the end zone has been problematic. You watch, obviously, San Jose State last week. They were able to get down into the low red zone, and I think had 3 penalties in a row that knocked them out of there. So it's going to be challenging, and we're going to try to prepare for it the best we possibly can. But at the end of the day, we still have to go out and execute it. So, and that's not just with our starters. That's with whoever could possibly be in the game.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle, then Mark Wogenrich.
Hey, Rich.
Hi, James. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks. How would you assess your run defense and your linebacker play through the first 2 games, knowing that you haven't really faced a team that's a run-oriented team, and also with Auburn being a run-oriented team?
Yeah, I think your point is a good one. It's hard to get a true evaluation on that. Obviously, when you just talk about disruption plays like tackles for loss and sacks and things like that, I think going into the year we knew that linebacker. We had questions there in terms of just returning experience. But again, we've been able to get those guys a ton of reps. They're getting better every single day. Again, I still am a huge believer that it starts up front, with our defensive line and setting the tone, especially when you still have some inexperience behind them. It helps and takes some of the pressure off of those guys. But this is going to be a challenge. There's no doubt about it. You make a mistake against this crew, and it has a chance to cost you. They got some guys that you watch on tape, and obviously guys that can make big plays. So we're going to have to be sound. We're going to have to make sure that fundamentally, we are prepared and executing the way we're going to need to execute. But we're going to be challenged. We're going to be challenged by their run game. We're going to be challenged by their athleticism. We're going to be challenged by the environment. And that's why, we got to make sure we have a great practice today, and Wednesday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays are really important from that standpoint, especially when you're talking about the run game, and put our guys in the best position to be successful come Saturday afternoon. And then on top of that, obviously, you just also have to understand, the play action opportunities that come off of that run game as well. So you got to be prepared for both.
Mark Wogenrich, all Penn State, then John McGonigal.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good.
You mentioned about kind of pre-prepping last week with the noise and stuff like that. What did you do then preseason or during the off season to get ready for going to Auburn, having never been there before from a travel, heat, facilities perspective, that sort of thing?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. Obviously noise, we sometimes maybe in the past we may, transition inside or modify some practice, but, we were fortunate to be outside for as many of those practices as possible. We messed around with Haluba, closing the doors and turning the heat on in there and trying to get prepared for that as well, and then travel, we really were working on flying into there, but that wasn't able to get done. So flights, are challenging. Hotels are challenging. Our hotel's about an hour from campus. I actually think they used to stay an hour from campus as well as the home team. So there's some things that we're going to talk to the team about today just to be prepared for. But we got a plan for it. But it is a little bit different than the way we normally operate. That's why I'll tell them today and go through those things. Kevin Threlkill will go through them at the end of practice, just so our guys, I don't want them ever to be caught off guard on Saturday afternoon, that they're prepared for what those types of things are going to be. But for the most part, everything else in our routine will be similar. We'll be as prepared as we possibly can be, for the environment. But once again, at the end of the day, you still got to be able to go execute, at the moment and at the time.
John McGonigal, Penn Live, then Ben Jones.
Yeah, James, Sean talked after the game a lot about the importance of yards after the catch in this offense. In the offseason, did you see an improvement or extra focus in that area? And I guess, is that an area you've been pleased with so far through 2 games?
Yeah, I wouldn't say any more so than other times, but obviously when you talk about that, that's recruiting and development in terms of strength and athleticism to break tackles or to be able to run by people. And then obviously the other thing is accuracy at the quarterback position. If that ball is thrown in stride and away from the defender, you're encouraging, run after the catch. The fundamentals and ball security of being able to catch the ball cleanly and confidently. I think Parker Washington's a great example of that, a guy that can make the tough catch, with still being able to transition or not even slow down to catch it, be able to reach back and contort his body into positions to catch the ball. So catch radius and ball skills make guys faster than they actually are. So all those things we try to emphasize as much as we possibly can. I know those guys spend a lot of time working on it in the summer, but I wouldn't necessarily say any more or any less than what we've done in the past.
Ben Jones, statecollege.com, then Mike Gross.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, James. How's it going?
Good.
You go back to Trace and Sean. Neither of them had played a lot of football for you before they were named starters. Obviously, they had some game experience because of circumstances. Where does Drew compare right now to guys that obviously were in the program for a while but had not really played football and then ended up subsequently having, I guess we'll see with Sean, but 2 of their best seasons as a starting quarterback right off the bat?
Yeah, that's, I think, a lot in how we practice and how we prepare. Our 2s get a lot of reps in practice, which I think helps. I would also say, with Trace, one of the things with him was, over his career, over his time, he just was so durable as well that a lot of those opportunities just didn't present themselves like they normally do. But, obviously, being able to say, we're going to make sure, like we did last week, to be able to get, Drew some experience, especially when you're talking about a freshman, compared to, because I do think it's different. Say it's a redshirt freshman or a redshirt sophomore that maybe hasn't had a whole lot of game experience, but has had a ton of reps and experience within the offensive practice. It is different when it's a true freshman and he doesn't really have either. So being able to get some of those opportunities, I think, are really important. But yeah, I think the way we practice and the way we train and the amount of reps that we get. Some people, give very little reps to their backups. It's very much the starting unit for the majority of the reps, and we try to balance that for multiple reasons. Not only obviously for practice reps and experience, but also for keeping guys fresh and healthy and those types of things, your starters. So, hopefully we're putting ourselves in position not only for current success, but also future success with the way we are managing it.
Last question on the Zoom. Mike Gross, Lancaster Newspapers, and we'll come to the room.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. After Purdue, you said that that wasn't really a middle linebacker's kind of game. That wasn't really an interior lineman's kind of game, obviously because of the way they play. So whose kind of game might Auburn be, which is a much different challenge? And also related to that, it seems like when you've had a lot of extra D-back position groups on the field defensively, like what Jair's been doing, it almost reminds me of Marcus Allen a little bit. Does that make any sense at all? And again, talk about what players might come to the fore in this matchup.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Maybe not stylistically how we're using him compared to Marcus, but in terms of the plays that he's making. There's been a couple times where people have run in non-traditional downs, and Jair's made some big-time plays, even sometimes taking on offensive guards, defeating a block and making the tackle on the ball carrier, or just, timely tackles, in space. So yeah, I think in terms of similar types of plays that he's been able to make. But yeah, I think this game, obviously, I'm a big believer that it always starts up front with your front four as well as your front seven. This game, and you look at their running backs and you look at their style of play, especially over the first two games of the year. We're going to have to play well up front. There's no doubt about that. And then they have the skill and the ability to play action pass off of it and shots down the field. So we're going to have to be able to do both. But I do think, to your point, how our front seven plays in this game is going to be critical based on stylistically how they want to play on offense.
Open up to questions here in the room. Raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you.
Hey, James, over here. How are you?
Good.
Olu, through 2 games, what have you seen there, and how did he put himself in a position to be successful this season?
Yeah, he's playing really well. We've had a ton of respect for Olu really since he stepped on campus, and just he's one of those high production, low maintenance guys that really does everything right. You talk to the academic people about him, they love him. He's done everything right since he stepped on campus. You talk to strength and conditioning, you talk about the trainers, you talk about the equipment staff. Just, Olu's one of those guys. He just goes about his business. He does everything the right way. He's extremely focused. His play strength is exceptional. There's times where, whether it's in games or in practice, where one of our defensive ends or somebody will put a good move on him and catch him, and he's able to recover with his play strength is really impressive. And he's just consistent. And I think you guys have heard me talk about this. I know the team has heard me talk about this to nauseum, is that's the difference at this level, the guys that consistently can do it. And, his process and his habits are really good. And it's really not a surprise to any of us how high, what the level that he is playing at right now. Been super impressed with him. Did I answer your question? Okay, I didn't know. Sometimes you have a second question, and I didn't know if I missed it.
Zach Allen, Daily Collegian.
Hey, Zach.
Thank you for your time today. Curtis Jacobs was telling us today he's excited to go against Auburn's run game and excited to put the hard hat on, and he didn't come to Penn State to play 7-on-7 football. How are the rest of the front seven feeling going into a game against Auburn with a strong run game?
It's interesting that Curtis said that, because when we recruited him, his dad, we had a bunch of heated arguments that he was a wide receiver. So it's interesting, that this is kind of moved to this point, and I love that Curtis is approaching it that way, because I think he does have the right mentality that we need at LBU, but also has the athleticism to make the plays in the passing game based on his background. He's kind of the total package, and I think he's been playing really well. I thought last week played really well. But yeah, I think, obviously that approach this week, not just with Curtis, but with our entire front seven, our defensive line, our defensive tackles, and our entire linebacking core will be tested this week, not just in the run game, but also the complementary play action passes that are going to put those guys in conflict, and some of the RPO stuff as well. So, it'll be really important, and I'm glad, that we're talking on Tuesday, and he's got that approach, and that will be reinforced in the team meeting, and that'll be reinforced at practice all week long, but starting on today, which is a hard hat day for us.
Daniel?
Afternoon, James. Staying on the linebackers. Last week, you sounded like you wanted to get Abdul Carter a lot of playing time on Saturday after how the first game went. How do you think he fared in that extended time?
Yeah, I thought it was really important for him. He flashed and did some really good things. He has the ability to find the ball in traffic. He's one of our more explosive guys. All the catapult numbers and things like that tell you that. what he's done on special teams. Obviously, not getting more reps in that game one was not ideal, but obviously there's enough to build on right now, and I know he's gaining more and more confidence, and I know Manny's gaining more and more confidence in him as well, so that he can literally go out and use all those skills that he has with less thinking, which will make him even more a violent and fast player with less thinking that he has to do as a true freshman.
Oh,
Hey, James, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. 2 games into the season, Adisa Isaac, he's back on the field after the injury. How is he progressing, and what are you seeing from him confidence-wise?
Yeah, I think well. One of the things that we're working on, not only with Adisa but with a number of our guys, is getting their weights back to where they've been in the past. Adisa's had a really good combination of strength, size, speed, and quickness. And that's probably the one area that we still haven't gotten completely back to is the size components. A few pounds. I mean, nothing significant, but he's a few pounds down, which I think will help him not only in this game, but as the season goes on, and from a durability standpoint and just the wear and tear in big time college football. But I do think he's getting more and more confident each week. I think he's getting more and more comfortable each week. I felt like he was in a good place going into game one, but obviously every game you play after coming back from an injury where you lost significant time, there's more and more confidence that comes with it, both physically, mentally, emotionally, all those things. So we love that he's back. He's another guy that's kind of steady Eddie in his approach and maturity and demeanor. Big fan of Adisa's.
Bob.
Hey, James, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. James, at the top, you mentioned the sacks from the Ohio game. Did you think, or would you like to see your quarterbacks either get the ball out a little bit quicker or maybe throw it away? I didn't know that all those sacks might have been on the offensive line.
Yeah, I think there's some times that we have done that both in games and in practice, which we've talked about the importance. I think if you're not careful, you're in practice and the quarterbacks know they're never going to get hit, and they don't throw the ball away because they're extending plays and working on scramble drills, and all those things are important, but it's not game-like. And you need to make sure that your movements in the pocket or your scrambles or your ability to extend the play are game-like, and that's something that I try to reinforce as much as I possibly can at practice, because if not, you can fall into some bad habits at the quarterback position. So, there are times that we probably need to do that a little bit more, but I wouldn't necessarily say all of those sacks, fall into that category. But some of them are probably good to get the ball away, and sometimes it's just knowing where your outlet is and launching it in that direction out of bounds.
Neil?
But you better be good there because you're still in the pocket. So you better be sharp and confident with that.
2 quick ones, unrelated. I saw you took a picture with the Hollidaysburg Little League team. Were you watching the Little League as it was unfolding? And do you have a long field goal plan? Is that going to be Jake, or last year it was Stout? Just wondering how that shapes up.
Long
as well.
field goal, we're talking about game-winning field goals, is Sanders Sahidek, which is, I think, 52 yards or more. And then the Little League, those guys, we had reached out to them and they had reached out to us. So we invited them to a practice. That was a couple weeks back, which was good to spend some time with them and congratulate them on a great season. Obviously representing the state and the Hollidaysburg community and really Center County. Really cool experience for those young men, for those young kids, and their coaches and their moms and dads and all that kind of stuff. So, being able to have them here and recognize their success was pretty cool. I was not able to watch it. I think that's right kind of in the heat of our training camp, but it was also cool having them here.
Sauber?
Hey, James, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. Prior to Purdue, you mentioned having 5.5 wide receivers that you were comfortable with. After 2 games, are you still in that spot? And are the top 3 guys still tap guys, or are you more comfortable rotating guys in now?
Yeah, I think that's expanding. I think that's expanding. Getting Jaden Dotton back has expanded that. Omari is a guy that's really starting to come on and gain some confidence as well. So Caden Saunders has been able to get in and play a little bit. So the list is expanding, but I would say from a rotation and a tap standpoint, we're probably still the same, where we were at.
Mike?
Hey, James.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, you're obviously aware what Will Levis has done, and with CV going from 3 to 2 to 3, what are your challenges these days, playing quarterbacks, slotting them where they are in the order, given the way that college football is now?
Yeah, I think in general across the country, it's a challenge in college football. There's no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, you just have to manage, your team and people, appropriately, and you just have to have honest conversations and tell people where they're at, and you hope people have patience to battle and compete, because there's a bunch of stories and examples of guys that have stuck it out and competed, and it's worked out well for them and the team. There's less and less of those stories, obviously, in college football because of, some obviously the new rules and dynamics that are there. But at the end of the day, you just want to be as transparent and direct and honest as you possibly can. And hopefully, be able to have the type of relationships with them and their parents, that conversation and communication is a two-way street, so that they can make great decisions and so you can be aware of what's going on.
Last 2 questions, Audrey, then T. Frank.
Hey, James, you just touched on Amari Evans and said that he's gaining confidence. I guess, what have you seen from him in the last 2 games, and is he somebody that the plans to burn the red shirt, and why do you think he's been able to put himself on, to get on the field so quickly as he has?
Yeah, another guy, if I remember correctly, was here for spring football, which helps. He's got some skills and talents that aren't really coachable. God-given talents and skills and ability in terms of speed. Was a guy that we were able to get in camp and get a true evaluation on during the recruiting process, and did extremely well. And some of those things are starting to show up. For him, it's has not played a lot of wide receiver in his life, so that development I think was really important. But more than anything, it's knowing the system inside and out, understanding defenses, and then being able to get in the weight room to get strong enough to develop the size that he was going to need to, because speed was never going to be an issue for him. It was all about strength and wide receiver fundamentals and techniques, and understanding defenses, strengths, weaknesses, and how we want to attack them, those types of things, voids and zones, and how to change and modify routes based on man coverage. So obviously getting on the field and then having some success helps, because that field experience, in Beaver Stadium or on the road, when you have success, it usually has the ability to magnify and speed up a kid's maturity and developmental from a football perspective. So hopefully that will continue.
T. Frank?
Hey, James, back here.
Hey, T.
How you doing?
Good.
I guess we're going to be sticking with the wide receivers here to end. When you're talking about that group outside of your top 2, and the players that are coming in and out, how much is speed something you're looking for, and how, I guess, would you look at that group as a whole and assess the speed of your receivers?
Yeah, I think we have gotten faster, this year, maybe compared to previous years. And when I say that, I'm talking about, the unit from top to bottom, the entire unit. I do think we are faster. I do think we have, more consistency from top to bottom in terms of ball skills and fundamentals and techniques and just natural ball skills. So that helps. I think there's more true competition, through the entire unit as well. But yeah, speed's always something. Obviously, if you can have guys that can go 80 and take the top off the coverage and beat one-on-ones, There's a lot of ways to do that, but obviously speed's a big part of it. So we try to recruit it as much as we possibly can in this region of the country. The numbers of those types of guys compared to maybe some other areas of the country. But it's something, that's where camp is really important, to get true evaluations on guys, true times. And we've been fortunate to be able to do that, more times than not.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Again, just a reminder, Sean Clifford will be on at 1:40 on the Zoom. Thank you.